A very good morning, and I am absolutely delighted that we are having a very significant conversation today on the Caregiver Saathi platform. The conversation today is about what today's day signifies. Today's day is a day devoted to the awareness around autism and understanding autism. I have to say that personally, I got to know autism when I was a much adult, and I don't think I grew up with adequate information and knowledge. And perhaps my information and knowledge about autism today is significantly wanting. I know it only from a distance, and perhaps I'm afraid that I don't know enough. So given today is the day for awareness around autism, we have a very special guest with us, Gopika Kapoor, who has not just had life experience with autism. She's been a parent to a child with autism and has done extensive work in the area. And we are grateful to her for sharing her knowledge and wisdom with us and helping us understand what autism is and how we can be compassionate caregivers, whether as friends, family, colleagues, parents. And we will be speaking specifically about the theme this year. The theme this year for Autism Awareness is inclusivity at workplaces. So this is at a very beautiful intersection for all the work that I do around organizations and leadership development and bringing diversity to the workplace. So welcome, Gopika.
Thank you so much, Bhavana. It's such an honor to be here, especially today, which is a day which does mark autism awareness. And I really think that we need to start moving towards autism acceptance rather than just awareness, as times move on, because I think that's really what is needed to kind of bring about this culture of inclusivity that you were talking about. So I just wanted to add, Bhavna, that I am also the author of a book called Beyond the Blue, which is the first book by an Indian parent on autism. This is a book which chronicles my journey with my son, who is now 16 years old, right from the time that he was a baby. And it also includes professional knowledge, strategies, tips, lived experience for parents, since I have worked as a therapist for 10 years. And it's available on Amazon and Flipkart. The Hindi translation should be out this year. So I would encourage all parents to read it, to kind of learn more about autism and to really know how to work with and how to ensure participation of individuals with autism in society. Because like you said, in the workplace, in the community, in society. Okay.
Yeah, minor technical glitch, but we are back.
Yes. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak about this, because I think it's really an important place and an important day to talk about.
No, it's fantastic. Actually, I think that the fact that not only have you navigated your journey with a sense of, how much ever unknown and difficult terrain it was, you've navigated that journey, but be able to also look back upon it and be able to create a resource for so many others who might be in the same space and struggling similarly, or trying to make meaning. I think it's an incredible act of going beyond yourself. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It was really cathartic to write about my whole journey. You know, when I reflected on it, I think it increased my acceptance and my love for my son. And I really, you know, when Veer, my son, was first diagnosed, the first thing, I am a writer and a reader. And so the first thing I did was look for books. And every single book that I read was from a Western perspective. Nothing talked about the Indian perspective, you know. So I'll give you a small example. You know, there is this thing called the gluten-free kiss-and-free diet, which a lot of parents experiment with, especially in the early years. At that time, you're looking for anything to kind of fix your child, you know. And nobody talked about that in the context of India, where the staple meal of everybody is a roti. How do you expect people, and you live in a family, which is not just, right? Most people don't live in nuclear families. They live in joint families. I remember my in-laws were so sweet because they would kind of, you know, they adjusted their meal time so that they could eat their rotis without my son having to do that. These are things that are so small but so significant. And none of the Western books talked about that. And so I really felt that this book was a long time coming. It took me a long time to get up the courage to write it, but I'm glad I did. I'm really, really glad I did.
We are glad and we are grateful that you did what you did. And I would like for you, if it is okay with you, to tell us a little bit about your journey. Of course, we will get a copy of your book, but you know, what is it that you would tell us about your journey so that we can get a glimpse into that?
Sure. So actually, I have twins. And so my journey started right from the time that my children were a few months old. My son's name is Veer, my daughter's name is Gayatri, and they are probably my life's biggest achievements. They are 16 years old now and are bright, energetic, lovely young people, if I may say so, that myself, being their mother. It started when people started noticing differences between Veer and Gayatri. And initially, kind of reaction.
I think you know.
Yes.
I am very amused by the technical challenges we are having today.
I know.
I have a hypothesis about it, which I will talk about once you finish. So please go on.
Okay. And so, like I said, Tari Zameen Par had come out. There were lots of articles being written, and so I figured that I need to, you know, see what is up with Veer. And so we took him to a developmental pediatrician, and that is where he was diagnosed with autism. The initial few months and maybe years were a complete blur because we were running from one therapy to the other in, like I said, an effort to fix him. I think this is the path which most parents take. Till they reach a point where they realize that there's really nothing to fix. That of course you must teach your child. Of course they can learn, but we don't have to fix them. And for me, arriving at this conclusion took a while. But in the course, I realized how privileged I was. I was able to access care. I had the money to pay for it. I didn't have to sacrifice something to be able to afford therapy. And so in order to give back, I joined Umi Child Development Center, which is where Veer was diagnosed. This is in Mumbai. And I joined there to work in fundraising, but I very quickly realized that I wanted to become a therapist. And so I requested Dr. Vibha Krishnamurthy, who runs UMI, whether I could become a therapist. And to her full credit, she agreed. And so I started training at UMI. And over the course of 10 years, worked with 400 to 500 families,
Wow.
children, did a lot of trainings all over the country. And I learned so much about autism, about the different ways in which the brain is wired, about the way children function and what makes them function, about how they learn. And I also learned about the families. The people who would come to me would be primarily mothers, because somehow what tends to happen is that when a child is diagnosed on the spectrum, the mother, in most cases, the mother takes on the job of bringing the child to therapy, of doing therapy at home with the child, of looking after the child.
Yeah.
We also had to work with a lot of mothers who had, who had mental health concerns themselves, because a lot of them were depressed because of the way their children were after the diagnosis, about how to cope, what to do. They were facing societal pressures. So many women would come to me saying, my in-laws blame me for the way my child. And that was a very, very common concern that we heard about. Or my husband doesn't want to have anything to do with this child because he says it's my fault. So again, working with that. So it was such an incredible learning experience. And I have tried to take 10 years of experiences, learning, all sorts of emotions that I felt, and put them in some 260 pages and write about it. So it's really been quite a journey.
I can only imagine. And some of the thoughts just came to me. For example, someone I know who is very, very dear to me discovered her child on the spectrum, didn't want to talk about it. And, one knew, but one didn't know how to offer support and how to convey that, listen, I don't think about it like most other people do.
Right.
And I know that, she felt that she was somehow responsible for it. Maybe she hadn't looked after herself well enough during pregnancy, and that led to, so somehow she caused it. And there's a sense of helplessness of the people around because we just don't know enough, right?
Yeah.
And I think your book is not just for parents. I think it is more for society at large, because we all need this. We all need this education. So, I am so glad.
Thank you so much for saying that. Thank you so much for saying that. Because I've kind of had reactions to the book, not only from parents of kids on the spectrum, but from people who are not parents at all, and who have told me that it is a book that teaches you about resilience and just how to face any adversity or any kind of trying. So yeah, so I think it's just about just how to deal with any kind of adversity. And for people who you're absolutely right, because we have, if you look at the statistics, we have 3 million people approximately who are on the spectrum. And they need to be, like we talked about initially, they need to be a part of society and community. And that will only happen when the people around them kind of change and figure out how they can be with them.
Yeah, and that leads me to the other conversation that we were having earlier, which is this whole tag of special child and special
Yes.
whatever. Um, I, I mean, I get goose flesh, and I'm a little moved by what you said. So, this. Can you tell us about what it meant to be the parent of a special child, and what has been your response, so that people can build a little sensitivity about it?
I hated it. I hated being the special needs mom in the group. I remember this one time, and I have written about this in my book, where we had a shadow teacher. And this was when he was in the first grade, and there was this coffee morning with these moms. And they all were saying, there's this new teacher. She's a shadow teacher for somebody. I wonder who it's for. And I remember sitting over there, and my heart was beating so fast. And I said, should I say, shouldn't I say, should I say, shouldn't I say? Yeah. And I said, I don't know. I just pretended I knew nothing at all. And it was, I think, it was the one point in my life when I look back, and I just feel that it was one among the lowest points in my life when I felt so low, because I just did not have that strength then to accept. When people talk about acceptance as one of those 5 stages of grief, it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And so it's something which took me a lot of time to accept that I am the parent of a child with special needs, and that this is something which is going to be with me for my life. It's going to be a tag which is going to be with me and with my life. The beauty about acceptance is that over time, it becomes almost like a cloak that you wear on you. You don't want to take it off. And now it's a matter of pride for me. It becomes part of my skin. It's really become part of my skin. It's something which I'm very proud of. It's something which I talk about. It's something which I kind of, proclaim from the rooftops of the world. But it takes time to build that. And I think a large part of that is the people you have who surround you. If you're constantly, like I talked about a lot of the women I worked with, where there was no family support, there was no community support, it was very difficult. But if you do have that kind of support, and you have people around you to give you the strength to rise up, it really.
I'm reminded, there's one particular story, some of the interactions that we have, and some of the work that we do in Caregiver Saathi is about working with family caregivers who have to deal with incurable conditions, right? So the healthcare system is designed for treatments and for, addressing acute illness and, curing it. So our orientation is, let's go fix it, let's go cure it. I remember meeting this young mother, and I can't get over her because she would say stuff like, she said in that meeting that, I get angry with my child, and sometimes I'm so tired and frustrated that I want to slap him. Am I a good mother? And my heart comes to my throat every time I say this.
I've been there. I've just been there. Absolutely.
And I did want to tell her, and I want you to help us reach out to all those mothers and, tell us, what is it that you would tell them?
I would say, of course, you're going to be in that position all the time. There are times when I've even given him a spank on his bottom because I've just been so frustrated. And of course, all the books will tell you, take a deep, calm, take a deep breath, say, chant a mantra, do whatever it takes. Anger is very, very real. And it takes time because you're not angry at the child. Yes, the child is probably 5% of it, and they may have done something which has caused that. You're angry at life, at circumstances. I remember listening to this TED talk once, which said that the time that the feeling of anger originates and enters your brain and leaves the whole physiological reaction leaves your body is 9 seconds. Why do we hold on to anger? But I mean, sometimes we hold on to it for years, right? But it is not just that incident which has caused the anger. It's anger at life. Why did I become like this? It's anger at the universe or God or whatever you want to believe in, fate. You know, why did I get this child? It's anger at people around who are maybe not supportive, or people who don't understand, or even at other people. Like, why do other people have to have perfect children, and why do I have to have this child? Not if you don't love your child, but it's the unfairness of society, unfairness of life. It's everything, you know. And sometimes it just becomes too much, and that is why for parents initially, of course, it's very difficult, because all you're seeing is that. That's the only thing you're seeing. And I know, because I've been there. You're like you're on a treadmill. You want to fix things. You want to go from one therapy to the other. You're trying out diets. You go to faith healers. I went to faith healers. You know, you're doing everything possible, and you are exhausted, so tired. You just cannot think. And what happens is that in this whole circus that you're surrounded by, you don't take time out for yourself. And when you are in that situation, you're not taking time out for yourself, you're not looking after yourself, then because of the exhaustion, because of the frustration, because you see, things don't change overnight. Because even when you're teaching your child with autism, they take time to learn. They will learn. They all learn. Okay? But it takes time. And you've not developed that patience yet. To kind of accept. You've not, when I say you, I mean most parents, I would say. There are some amazing parents who have just, I know, who from the get-go, they've been amazing, inspirational moms, but most parents are not like that. And so what happens is the anger comes out. And who does it come out on? The person who's right in front of you, 24/7, who is this child. And so, of course, the only thing I would say is, please remember to take time out for yourself, and do not feel guilty about it. You know, guilt is such a huge accompanying kind of factor, which I think anyway, even mothers of neurotypical children experience it. You know, anytime they take out from their child, we say, oh God, I can't do this for myself. I should be with my child. It's this whole societal conditioning we have about mothers and guilt. But especially if you have a child with any sort of special needs or autism, it's just like a albatross which is sitting on your back. You know, it's much more, and it just, you have to shrug it off, and you have to take that time out, because it makes a world of difference.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, there's so many things that you said. For example, I love the description of anger, because I think it is so true. You are actually, first of all, anger is a very legitimate feeling. I live with it for so many things. So I'm going to legitimize it, whether or not anyone else does. And I think sometimes we can't discern what we are angry about, but we hold on to it for a variety of reasons. We feel, I think it's somewhere your craving for love and attention and understanding that manifests in anger. I also heard you speak about guilt and definitely shame. And I think I've heard it in different forms. For example, a parent saying, yeah, you know, my child has been detected on the spectrum, but, you know, it's a spectrum. So, you know, he's on the lower.
Oh, God, that's another place I've been at.
Yeah. There are, and something that, you know, another dear person in my life says that, you know, there are some illnesses and some conditions that can be detected and that are evident. There are many that cannot be detected and are not evident.
Yes.
The idea of normal is a myth.
So true. Very true. And so that's why autism is considered an invisible condition. It is, because you look at a child, you're not going to say this child is on the spectrum or is autistic, um, unless they have, say, cerebral palsy and they're in a wheelchair, or they have
Yeah.
difficulties with walking or whatever it is. But
Right.
otherwise, you're not going to be able to detect it at all.
Right. Right. And you know, like when somebody says something like this, it's a little bit of a mix of a response. Like, you know, you want to step back and you want to say, you know what, I don't want to overstep here. I know what you're trying to say. I want to be sensitive to what you're trying to say. What you really want to say is that your child is okay. And, you know, and I respect that. But sometimes I think we don't have the language to be able to do it. I would I would like for us to veer towards the theme of autism awareness, and the fact that this year the emphasis is on autism at workplaces.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to have adults who have autism and that they be included in workplaces? So, what are your first thoughts on that?
I think honestly that people with autism are a huge untapped source of employment. There are a lot of kind of characteristics that they have which are typically viewed as challenges, but which actually, when you look at them, are strengths when it comes to the workplace. So, for example, the first thing that anyone will tell you uh, about a person with autism is that they are not very social, they find social difficult. And so, yes, with this overwhelming stress, on social skills and being a team player, uh, in a workspace, they will not fit into that. But is that necessary to do every job? Yes, maybe for sales and marketing, you need to be social and to be able to have the gift of the gab. But if you work in an IT firm or if you work in an accounting firm, you don't need to be very social. You don't need to have exceptional social skills. So again, you look at it as take the challenge and look at it as a strength. For example, yes, they may not be very social, but on the other hand, they're not going to waste time in like mindless chatter. They're not going to sit and scheme and talk about office politics and make all these strange plans to um, kind of set somebody up for failure. They're going to come in, they're going to focus on their work, and they're going to do it. They're going to get the job done because their ability to focus is incredible. The other thing is their tremendous kind of persistence. If a job has to be done, it will get done. It will just get done. So that they're very, very honest. They do not like transitions. And that is something which we work on with children as well, where moving from one place to the other is difficult for them. Leaving one thing and moving to the other is difficult. But when you look at it in the workplace, you have a very loyal employee who is not going to change jobs every year just for the sake of better growth prospects or for 10,000 rupees more of a salary. So you have all these things, these kind of conditions or factors which we typically look at as challenges. But if there is a shift in perspective and if employers think about it, these really can prove to be absolute pluses when it comes to the workplace. As regards what they will have to do to make the workplace more autism friendly, yes, of course, there have to be accommodations. There have to be things which they have to change around. But they are very minor when you compare it to the larger, kind of scenario. Most companies who have worked with employees on the spectrum have found that not only has it impacted the employees, it's also impacted the finances of the company. So it's not, when a company hires a person on the spectrum, they're not doing charity. They're after all a business, they need to make a profit. There was a very interesting article in The Guardian in February this year, where they reported on autism in the workplace in India, and they reported that there were neurodiverse teams which actually saved a company some 73,000 pounds in the year. And a job which was supposed to take 5 weeks took 3 days. So again, those kind of things are very, very positive indicators. But I think what is important is that the workplace culture needs to change. The top
I find it absolutely fascinating that we are having these technical glitches today.
Yeah, lots of technical glitches.
But here's I think it's important I speak about my hypothesis.
Yes, yes. Please do tell.
I think a challenging topic like this is going to be difficult to navigate. Okay. And it is going to be different from the smooth operations we are used to. So I think, organizations and workplaces have been designed at a time for a set of people with certain efficiencies and certain slickness in mind. Okay. And now we are trying to change that. We are trying to say, listen, we need to look at workplaces differently. And if we bring in, people with different strengths, there is going to be a little bit of a glitch along the way, but it will smoothen out in the long run.
I love that. So I'm going to tell you my take. My
Yes.
take is that whether it is a student or a young child who I used to work with, to teach them certain tasks, or an employee, they all need breaks from time to time from the task. So what we are doing is we're giving breaks.
Yeah.
So it's as simple as that.
That is true. That is definitely true.
Just to self-regulate ourselves, to have a sip of water and come back and to focus our thoughts. So that's what it is.
I know. And I was just thinking that, so organizations and workplaces have existed in a certain way, right? So when earlier workplaces used to be factories and plants and things like that, and then we moved to, office spaces that were slightly different, and now we are working from home. I suppose every place requires a different infrastructure. So if we were building an office in a very earthquake prone area, we would provide for something different there. I remember very vividly in one of the organizations where I was working, two incidents. One, there was a young mother who came and said, you people in the HR department, I need a feeding room. Because I need to breast pump and I need time. So we didn't have a space in our office, a very progressive organization. We literally converted a team room into a breast pump space because she was the first woman who asked for that facility. But then it just became a norm. So sometimes taking the first step is hard.
Yes.
And this was an IT firm. We had one person that we hired who had severe polio. And despite being a sensitive organization, we didn't have a ramp. So the entrance to the office had steps. And we needed to construct a ramp. But I am so grateful to that organization and, the leader of the HR team, who I absolutely love, Karthik, who said, this has to be done, this has to be done. Mm-hmm. And we took the
initiative. Sometimes I think the first step is to just make that commitment that you will hire somebody who's on the spectrum. I think the what and the hows and the everything else just kind of falls into place. But once you have decided, I think it is just a question of that decision and the commitment that, look, we will do whatever it takes to support this person. And actually, Bhavna, it doesn't take that much. There are simple things. Like, for example, if your company has a policy of floating desks, okay, where you come in and every day you change your desks and, all you have to do is designate one desk for this one person, because they will not be able to deal with the concept of a floating. If you have tube lights, which, typical government office tube lights which flicker, now that is difficult for a lot of people on the spectrum. They have visual, issues. All you can do is either tell them, if you cannot change the tube lights, you tell them you can wear sunglasses or reflective glasses, or else just change the tube lights and switch them to LEDs, which don't flicker as much, or sit them in a place which is, seat them in a place which is closer to natural light. One company found that their productivity, I know it's such a small thing, it sounds ridiculous, but it's true. The productivity of the employees changed when they changed their floor cleaner. Okay, because it was a very strong smell, and when they used a more neutral smell, it was less distracting for their neurodiverse employees. Were then able to focus better, and then productivity and efficiency went up. So it is just actually the small things, and I think HR policies doesn't necessarily have to have things like, when we talk about equality and we talk about inclusivity and diversity, it is just taking into account these small things and saying, okay, what can I do to make your work day a little bit better than it already is, and make you more comfortable in the space that you work.
Absolutely. I think the point is also that I may have understood that workplaces are best like this, right? So I have a definition of what is a good workplace and a definition of what is efficiency. And perhaps now that needs to change. Perhaps now I need to be able to say, okay, this needs to be challenged. This needs to be looked at differently. And maybe we need to understand this better. Maybe I just don't understand this new set of people and their new set of needs. So can I have a dialogue? How do I set up a dialogue with experts like yourself who are able to come from their life experience and share their experience and help people understand and challenge some of their old ideas and say, okay, the workplace of the future will be a little more inclusive, and here are some ways in which we can do it.
Right. I think that's really important. I think that is the dialogue that companies, there are a few who are having this conversation and who have been open to, hiring neurodiverse teams and employees, but I think it needs to become a norm rather than an exception.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, I think it is also very interestingly and very significantly linked with the other challenge. Recently this report has been released about how few women are in the formal workplace and organizations. And I have a strong hunch that a large number of qualified women fall off the workforce because they have such caregiving responsibilities. So if we want to retain, not just include people with autism, but caregivers who are looking after people with autism, then workplaces have to be sensitive to also caregivers.
Very true. Very true. Yeah.
And
So
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I want you to tell me what is your experience. You mentioned that mostly it is mothers. So tell me what is your thought about this hypothesis?
I came across a very interesting term on this. The term is that women evaporate. Women evaporate from the higher kind of rungs of leadership and management, which is true, because it's almost like they're kind of vanishing into thin air. And in my experience working with families, when a child was newly diagnosed, both the parents would take time off and come for therapy. And then after some time, the fathers might not come in so much, and the mothers would be taking time off. And they, they'd be kind of, sometimes they'd say, I'm so sorry, but this is a work email. And so they'd be answering emails. And after some time, you find that they were sitting over there without their phones out, and you'd say, you know what, I quit my job because it was just too much for me to handle. And this is something which fell on the women. I think even traditionally, when it comes to just parenting children, of course, the role of the caregiver is traditionally the woman. And so if there is a question of giving up a job, it is just kind of assumed. It's not even, I wouldn't even say expected. It's just assumed.
It's just assumed,
that the woman will give up her job. And this is something which, of course, is definitely the case when you have a special needs child. Having said that, Bhavana, so we had talked about this earlier, and there was something which was quite interesting, which I thought of, which is flipping this whole thing on its head, which is that the women who give up their jobs in maybe the corporate space are the ones who then turn around. Because I think as a mother, you are your child's biggest advocate. You have to, whether you want to be or not. We talked about like assuming this mantle of being the special needs mom or the special needs parent. This is something which it's not something that you take on, it's thrust upon you.
Correct.
And like greatness, what you do with it is dependent on you.
Yes.
So I have seen that in the case of most organizations working with children on the spectrum, whether it is therapists, even if I were to look at my own example, I didn't come from the corporate space, but I came from the journalism space. And I never in a million years thought that my whole life would be turned around to become somebody who works with children with autism and then now has assumed this entire role of advocacy, of getting into diversity and inclusion, kind of training and working with companies to make sure that people on the spectrum are hired. And so it almost gives a lot of women a new avatar.
Yeah.
If you see organizations which work with children with autism, so whether it is Action for Autism, which is in Delhi, which is a fabulous organization headed by Mary Barua. Mary is somebody who just, her son is on the spectrum and she is unbelievably inspiring. She's such an amazing woman. There is Jo Chopra, who heads Latika Vihar Foundation. Dehradun. These are women who just took on this role and just, it was almost like they shed their previous skin and took this on with such amazing grace and beauty and compassion and so much passion and drive that they've made it into something quite beautiful. So yes, I do see that a lot of women, but everybody is not a Mary Barua and everybody is not a Jo Chopra. I think that they, there is that does happen to some women, but you're absolutely right. For most of the women who are the mothers of children with special needs, with autism, they do tend to evaporate from the higher levels of management in the corporate world.
And I strongly feel that, the pandemic has taught us that things are dynamic and things are uncertain and things are changing, and that we need leaders who are compassionate, leaders who can think out of the box, and leaders who can engage with challenges that have hitherto not been faced. All of that requires a certain dexterity, a certain ability to work with the unknown. And I think that mothers of children with diverse needs can actually fill that gap much more beautifully than the conventional leaders, or what we think makes a leader. So
Very true.
I am hoping that all those who listen to this conversation and are in charge of organizations will be able to see the potential and power of not just people with autism, but their caregivers, both men and
Yes,
women,
absolutely. Absolutely.
and
Absolutely.
and certainly mothers, because I think they come with very different resilience and wisdom.
Oh, yes. Absolutely. That's true.
And
Very true.
perhaps organizations will need to invest in sensitivity and awareness so that colleagues can understand and cope and be able to create the right environment. Any last words for us, so that, because this conversation can go on and on. I have a feeling that you and I
Yes, absolutely. I know it's been despite or because of the technical glitches, it's been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I would just say that I think we need to really, as individuals, as leaders, as a society, the world is becoming more and more polarized. I think we need to stop looking at people with autism or any sort of special need or any sort of different as these Bechara people, like we look at them. The yeah. So, Bhavna, like I was saying, that again, the fact that people with autism have been referred to as Divyajan, children of God who need very special care. Yes, of course they do, but so do all children and so do all individuals. We all need special care, right? We all need to feel need to feel special. Um, the fact of the matter is that in doing that, what we do is we tend to protect them. And I'm not just talking about parents, but as a society, we feel that this child needs my protection for the rest
yeah,
of my life.
yeah,
And actually, what we're doing is we're doing them a disservice, because when we protect, we don't challenge and we don't let them live out to their potential. Every single child with autism is capable of learning, and every single child with autism is capable of contributing to the society. And I think we need to stop looking at them as becharas and as, we need to stop looking at them as people who cannot do anything and who cannot contribute, because they can all contribute. And we just need to figure out if they are not the issue. There's nothing wrong with them. We are the ones who need to change our lenses and look at them differently. So the problem lies with us. There's nothing wrong with them at all. And I'm hoping that conversations like this will help in a very small way, but taking a step forward to change mindsets and change attitudes.
absolutely. No, I think so beautifully said. I think there are some fixed ideas of what is normal, what is okay, what is acceptable, and all of that deserves to be challenged. And
Yes,
we definitely need to change our lens. And
absolutely.
I absolutely am inspired and love the work that you do, the courage and
Thank
the
you.
grace that you have. Thank you for doing what you do and who you are. Uh,
Thank you. Thank you so much.
it has been such a pleasure. I have not realized where the time has gone, and
Yes, neither have I.
and I have a feeling that we can have many such dialogue spaces and conversations and look at how we can shift the needle on this one. I look forward to that. And I look forward to collaborate with you as well. So,
yes, looking forward to that. And hopefully this conversation will continue.
thank you. You have a lovely day for whatever is left and a great weekend.
You too. Take care, Bhavna. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.